a constructive assessment of Peter Obi's presidential candidacy, promise, challenges, and national implications. My fellow Nigerians, every serious presidential candidacy deserves both scrutiny and fairness. Democracy is strengthened when citizens evaluate leaders, not through emotion, personality cults, or partisan loyalty, but through their vision, competence, record, and capacity to govern. Peter Obi's emergence as a major national political figure has undoubtedly reshaped Nigeria's political conversation. His candidacy has inspired millions of Nigerians, particularly young people, professionals, entrepreneurs, and citizens who have become disillusioned with the traditional political establishment. However, as with any presidential aspirant, it is important to objectively assess both the strengths and limitations of his candidacy and the potential consequences for the nation. The strengths of the Obi movement. One of the most significant achievements of Peter Obi's candidacy has been the re-engagement of citizens in the democratic process. Many Nigerians who had previously withdrawn from politics became active participants in public discourse, voter registration, political organizing, and issue-based debates. His campaign demonstrated that citizens are increasingly demanding accountability. Young people are willing to participate in governance. Competence and integrity have become important political themes. Political participation can extend beyond traditional party structures. This development is healthy for democracy. A democracy becomes stronger when citizens become active stakeholders rather than passive observers. The appeal of fiscal discipline. Peter Obi's political message has often emphasized prudence, accountability, production, and efficient management of public resources. Supporters frequently cite his reputation for fiscal discipline and his focus on reducing waste in government. In a country facing debt pressures, revenue challenges, and limited fiscal space, many Nigerians find this message attractive. The appeal is understandable. Citizens want leaders who treat public resources with the same care that successful businesses apply to financial management. The question of implementation, however, governing a nation is fundamentally different from managing a state, a private enterprise, or running a political campaign. Nigeria's challenges are extraordinarily complex and require navigating diverse regional interests. Security threats, constitutional constraints, political institutions, international economic pressures, legislative negotiations. One important question facing any Obi presidency would be whether campaign principles could be effectively translated into national governance outcomes. The challenge is not identifying problems. The challenge is implementing solutions within the realities of Nigeria's political and institutional environment. The coalition challenge. Presidential leadership in Nigeria requires broad national coalitions. A president must govern not only supporters, but also opponents, skeptics, in regions that may not have strongly supported his candidacy. One criticism sometimes directed at the Obi movement is that parts of its support base can become overly defensive or intolerant of dissenting views. While this does not define all supporters, any successful administration must encourage national dialogue rather than political polarization. The responsibility of leadership is not merely to mobilize supporters, but to unite citizens around common goals. A presidency perceived as representing only one political movement would face significant governance challenges. Economic expectations and reality. Many Nigerians associate Peter Obi with economic reform, investment promotion, and production-driven growth. Supporters believe his administration could improve fiscal discipline, encourage private sector investment, reduce government waste, increase transparency, promote export-oriented growth. However, expectations would be extraordinarily high. If elected, citizens would expect rapid improvements in inflation, exchange rate stability, employment, security, electricity supply, infrastructure. The danger is that unrealistic expectations can create disappointment if structural problems prove more difficult and time-consuming to resolve than anticipated. No president can solve decades of institutional and economic challenges within a few years. Institutional reform versus personality politics. Perhaps the greatest test of any Obi presidency would be whether it focuses on building institutions rather than relying on personal reputation. Nigeria's long-term success depends on strong courts, independent regulatory agencies, effective anti-corruption institutions, professional public service systems, transparent procurement processes, electoral integrity. The ultimate measure of leadership is not whether one leader is trusted. It is whether institutions become trustworthy regardless of who occupies public office. Potential positive consequences of an Obi presidency. If successfully implemented, an Obi-led administration could potentially result in greater fiscal discipline, improved government transparency, increased investor confidence, stronger citizen engagement, expanded youth participation in governance, greater emphasis on production and economic competitiveness, increased pressure for institutional accountability. These outcomes could contribute positively to national development and democratic consolidation. Potential risks and challenges. However, potential challenges could include resistance from entrenched political interests, difficulty building legislative consensus, managing extremely high public expectations, navigating complex security challenges, balancing reform with social stability, converting popular support into institutional change. The greatest risk may not be policy failure, but the possibility that citizens expect transformational results faster than the realities of governance permit. What Nigerians should demand, rather than evaluating Peter, Obi, or any candidate through partisan loyalty, Nigerians should ask fundamental questions. How will jobs be created? How will poverty be reduced? How will insecurity be addressed? How will institutions be strengthened? How will corruption be punished? How will constitutional reform be achieved? How will economic growth become inclusive? These questions matter far more than political branding or campaign slogans. Conclusion. Peter Obi's candidacy has already had a significant impact on Nigerian politics by expanding political participation, energizing younger voters, and elevating conversations around accountability and governance. Whether one supports or opposes his candidacy, those contributions have become part of Nigeria's democratic evolution. The ultimate question is not whether Peter Obi is different from previous political leaders. The ultimate question is whether any administration under his leadership could successfully transform public enthusiasm into lasting institutional reform, economic growth, national unity, and measurable improvements in the lives of ordinary Nigerians. That is the standard by which every presidential candidate should be judged. Not by promises, not by popularity, not by political affiliation, but by vision, competence, implementation, and results. That is the standard Nigeria deserves.